Here. Mr. Kogan.
Here.
Mrs. McKnight.
Here.
Salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's a public meeting, Borough Council, Borough of New Providence, County of Union, State of New Jersey. Adequate notice has been given in accordance with PL 1975, Chapter 231, that an annual notice of revision is made in conformance of Section 13 of the Act. Okay, this time we have discussion items, and we're going to talk about the new affordable housing mandates. McKinley, please come up, and thank you for coming tonight.
My pleasure. It's good to see everybody. All right, I know this is everyone's favorite topic. It seems to be the only time I ever get to come talk to you all is about affordable housing.
Anytime.
So I'll try to come on different topics next time. But yeah, as I'm sure you are all aware, in March there was a comprehensive amendment to the New Jersey Fair Housing Act that is going to be a complete overhaul of the process for establishing affordable housing obligations and then implementing the mechanisms to meet those obligations. The biggest, and some people are most excited about, thing is that COA has been formally abolished. 2015, it was essentially, it was declared moribund. It wasn't formally abolished, but it has not functioned since 2014, essentially. So I have to get out of the habit of calling these COA obligations or COA units because it really isn't that anymore. One thing that this did, well, many things it did, but it kicked a timeline into effect that we are in right now. The timeline is incredibly aggressive. A lot of us in the professional community have concerns about the deadlines that have been set, but I'm going to walk you through everything, and so far we're on track to meet the first deadline. That is on a week from today, Tuesday, the 18th. So briefly, so with COA being disbanded, the DCA is going to take over most of the functions of COA. The New Jersey Mortgage, I always get their acronym wrong, New Jersey Housing and Mortgage Finance Agency is going to split the duties with them a little bit as well. So there'll be really two entities working and taking over all of the previous responsibilities that COA held by itself. The biggest responsibility in the immediate future for the DCA is to establish those required obligations for every municipality in New Jersey. Before we get to that, though, the DCA is requesting towns provide a report of all of the development fee activity within their affordable housing trust funds. The way the legislation has been set up is slightly odd to those of us who work with this, because what's due on June 18th is a reporting of all non-residential development fees that have been collected since the inception of the trust funds, and on September 16th, a report of all residential development fees that have been collected.
What was that second date?
September 16th. Up until now, there's been no requirement or request to separate out residential development fees collected from non-residential development fees. Especially for New Providence, the building department, Keith specifically, along with Margaret, are very organized with collecting these. We have never kept track of which fees, they know what comes in when they get it, but we've never been required to keep track over the long haul of which were residential fees and which were non-residential fees. Every town that we work in is dealing with this. So the way we've decided to go, our firm, and we've talked to other attorneys about, and the way that it would make sense, we're going to provide them with all of the information. Margaret and Keith have been working very hard, and I think Debbie was helping as well. We have every transaction that's happened within the trust fund since it was established in 2007. We know what several of them are, maybe going back, I'd say about 10 years in terms of what was residential versus non-residential, but at some point the files, the data, it's lost to time. We don't have those check stubs anymore. So we will be submitting that report next week. It will account for all residential and non-residential fees collected, as well as interest earned and expenditures. This report is not asking us to break down the expenditures by categories, just what came in and what came out, essentially.
How far back does it have to go with the data for the reporting?
The language says, the way it's worded is since the municipal authorization to collect fees. What it doesn't specify if that means municipal authorization from COA, from the court, or just the governing body simply adopting the ordinance to collect the fees. Because New Providence adopted an ordinance in 2006 to collect the fees, we're going back that far. We're considering that the initiation of this. I have some towns that are just doing it since the last spending plan that was approved by the court, but we want to make sure we're covering all of our bases. If the DCA wants more information, they can certainly come and we'll work with them to provide that. So that will happen next Tuesday, and then on September 16th, again, we're going to submit a similar report, just updated over the last 4 months. They're also requiring the submission of basically a report that we submit every year. It's called an annual monitoring report, where we provide, right now we've been providing the DCA and Fair Share Housing Center with a report of all the housing activities that's happened over the past year. New residential units that have been built, any that have come to the planning board, any that rehabilitated, whatever that has to do with affordable housing. We've already been providing that report every year for the last 4 years. So we'll prepare, we just submitted one in April actually, so we'll prepare another one, and that will be accompanied by the second development fee report in September. Then the exciting thing happens, October 20th.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
So if on June 18th, if we're reporting in both, are they going to be okay with us having both of them together? Do we have the ability to rip them apart, or are we doing both?
So we have
Just
the
because of
ability
how
to
we have
separate
it.
them early as about 2014. Before that, the data is just not there. There's some educated guesses. Based on my conversation with other professionals in the field, the attorney who works for the municipal house, I'm sorry, I'm getting all my acronyms mixed up, the League of Municipalities, because the legislation is so vague and quite frankly and honestly written by people who don't implement these types of regulations, we are going to provide them with the information we have that is available to us, and the general accepted thought process among my cohorts is that the DCA should accept that, and if they have problems with it, then they're going to have to advise us on how they would like us to proceed.
Separate
Yeah, because and a lot of communities just, they don't go, the information doesn't go back that far. We've never been required to separate them out. And quite frankly, it really doesn't make a difference from the expenditure
come together
perspective.
anyway.
They come together, and the point is that you're spending them in ways that are approved by the legislature, so, yeah.
Thank you.
So then after this reporting period that goes through September, on October 20th, the DCA is supposed to release the obligations, the affordable housing obligations for every town in New Jersey. They're should be working on it. We heard, no joke, that they hired a person to sit in an office and crunch numbers for the next 4 months. So what we do have is the overall number of affordable housing units that are required at the state level. And this is how we have always done it, where there's a overarching number at the state. It's then trickled through to the 7 different housing regions, and then those obligations are trickled through to the individual municipalities. So I didn't write it down, but I think the overall number is like 86,000 or something along those lines. I can't remember. So they're working on pulling that down. Now, the new legislation did provide the methodology for how to calculate those obligations, but what it did not do was provide us with all of the specific data sets that need to be used. So there are calculations that we can perform right now, actually, and we will then put them up against what the DCA releases. We do expect New Providence's obligation to probably be similar to what it was for the third round, which is roughly 320 units. Once the DCA releases their obligation numbers on October 20th, every town will have until the end of January to run their own numbers against the DCA's using the methodology and the data sets that they've set out. For towns like New Providence, that will be updating our vacant land adjustment. And then on January 31st, or I should say by January 31st, 2025, every governing body has to adopt a resolution accepting their numbers, their obligation. And that's either the obligation that the DCA put forth or a recalculated one with reasons why we feel it's the correct obligation. So it's very fast, because if you think about what happens between October and January, you have elections, the League of Municipalities, Thanksgiving, and then the holidays, and then reorganization in January. So there's not actually a lot of time. They really did not provide a significant period for us to review everything, which is why a lot of us have tried to, us meaning the planning professionals and attorneys, have been trying to calculate these numbers with what information we have, so we at least have an umbrella idea of what to expect when they come back to us. After January 31st, there is 1 month where interested parties could challenge that resolution with the number. It's unclear exactly. It doesn't seem to me, at least, there doesn't seem to be a similar process laid out for the builder's remedy lawsuits. I don't know if Paul's heard of another, but the way the legislation says is interested parties, so and they can challenge it. There's going to be a new, it's called the Affordable Housing Dispute Resolution Program. It sounds a little cultish to me, if I'm being honest. But the program is what they call it for short. They're the ones who are assigned to come in and help manage any of these disputes that come up. That program will be staffed by current and retired judges. I do think they actually released that list of judges, that it will be, I think it's 5 to 7 around there.
It's at least 7.
Yeah, okay. And that will be for the whole state. So it won't be the way we've been, going to our regular judges, kind of different for every county. These judges will only be doing this affordable housing program. That's, I think, why they pulled a lot out of retirement. So lucky them. After that, let's see, where are we in our timeline? So by March 1st, so again, they have the whole month of February to follow that, to file those challenges. By March 1st, if there is no challenge, then that is the date that the obligation is solidified. There can't be another challenge to the obligation number. It is formally accepted by everybody. The DCA, interested parties can't come back in. That's final.
So you have to meet with those judges between those first 3 months, whatever the timeline is, to if there's any dispute resolution on the number.
It's a very good question. I'm not we're not sure how that's going to play out.
They've written this thing so vaguely that they have room to wiggle out of anything.
How are these, these judges are going to be really busy. They're going to hear all these challenges.
Yeah.
Also true. And they haven't released, one thing that the legislation lays out is the DCA and HMFA are supposed to release the actual rules and regulations. We are hoping that those would include the process for how this might play out. I'm hearing rumors that there might be adjustments to this timeline, but nothing solidified, because correct, I mean, it's so tight, it's unclear, especially knowing how governing bodies work. Most governing bodies only meet once a month. So to be able to discuss these things, there's no time. Yeah. So we're going to have to come back to you at a later date, hopefully when they release more information about the program and the rules and how that's going to function.
I would almost guarantee that timeline's going to be extended. There's no way they can get all this done in that small amount of time.
I agree, and I think, again, I've heard from some that there has been some rumblings at the state level about a new bill that would change this, but nothing, again, it's kind of just rumors right now.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing.
Yeah, so we're hoping, because most of our communities, they're not averse to participating, but it's not reasonable. Based on how municipal government works, there's just literally no time to accomplish some of this. After that, the town has until June 30th, 2025 to adopt a new housing element and fair share plan. And this is going to be much like the previous format of the housing element that we adopted, that the planning board adopted in 2019. There'll be demographics, there'll be a review of the previous obligations and previous rounds and how those were met, the status of those. One thing that the housing element is required to be consistent with the state development and redevelopment plan. It really always has been required to be consistent with that, but that has not been a focus since the 1990s, and it's becoming more part of the forefront here. There was supposed to be a new state plan released April 8th, and then that was delayed, and then May 22nd was the next date, and that was delayed, so we still don't have our state plan draft released yet. I hear
like I said.
I hear the DEP and EDA are fighting over it. So but anyways, we're hoping that does get released by the time we start drafting the new housing element. And that will be very similar again. With whatever our ultimate obligation is, we'll work through with ways to meet it. And the vacant land adjustment will play a huge part in the borough's mechanisms, just like it has in the last 2 rounds. Then that, again, this program that's set up, we'll submit our housing plan through that. And again, that's June 30th. Interested parties, again, have until August 31st to challenge the housing plan. So that would be challenging our mechanisms for meeting our obligation. So they have basically 2 months to challenge it this time. And it's going to be a similar, we don't know what that process is going to look like. Not sure if there's going to be builder's remedy the way it's been in the past, but there will be the ability to challenge. And finally, the last deadline they've given us is March 15th, 2026, and that is the deadline to adopt all required ordinances, rezonings, redevelopment areas, which I don't think redevelopment is as relevant in New Providence, but rezonings, that's our deadline to adopt those. It does note that if a municipality is still in the midst of one of those challenges, that deadline to adopt the final implementing ordinances can be extended until that challenge has been resolved. And that is the ideal timeline to be fully into the 4th round without making it go on for 25 years like the 3rd round did. But again, it's an incredibly intense and fast-paced timeline. So we're on track for the first deadline, and we'll certainly be keeping you posted as the next one rolls around. What we would recommend doing is now that we are in the midst of this, and we do expect we don't expect a delay from the DCA in releasing the obligation, so we're going to continue forward with that October 20th date in mind. So we would recommend reconvening your Mount Laurel subcommittee that you guys have. I know we met earlier in the year. Right, and so I think it would make sense to reconvene that and start looking, because that time period between October and January is so tight with so many other things happening during that period. We're recommending that towns take the draft numbers that our office or whomever have developed and really start looking at what the options are. And if that's an appropriate number, starting an updated vacant land adjustment maybe early fall to make sure that we know where our base is, and then can really plan for that moving forward. I think that really covers it. I mean, there's still a lot of unknowns, and we're all trying to navigate this.
So the DCA is the one that's going to be running this whole thing?
They're basically the new COA. They had a lot of power back in some of the previous rounds in the 80s and 90s, and it's going back to that process.
How much more are they taking on here? I'm just trying to get an idea of, are they even equipped to, I mean, this is a big project. To all of a sudden say, here you go, you're going to now run this too, are they going to be able to handle it?
We hope so, is my answer, because I don't know what their staffing is. I do know that they have brought in a data specialist to crunch all the numbers for all the municipalities, but I think that's a lot of our concern too, is that we can do everything we can, and the DCA isn't going to be able to respond in a timely fashion. I mean,
which makes this whole timeline mute. Right?
It's very fluid.
It's very fluid.
I'm sorry, McKinley, the date for adopting the new ordinances was March 15th of 26? Is that what you said?
March 20, I'm sorry.
March 1st.
March, yep, you're right. March 15th, 2026 to adopt all implementing ordinances.
March 1st is the obligation is certified.
Yeah.
McKinley, I couldn't agree more with you on forming or reconvening that committee. I think you can run through 2 scenarios. If the number is where it was, if it's better, if it's worse, at least have a strategy of how to attack it.
Right.
If we have to attack anything, but
exactly,
at least be prepared versus waiting last minute.
I agree, and it is what we're recommending to all of our communities, and we can start really looking at what's on the ground. And again, the DCA is releasing these numbers, but they don't know X site already has a planning board approval, so it's not really available for development. So making sure that we have people, governing body members, who know what's happening on the ground and can respond.
And just to clarify, so the estimate of about 320, that's just 320 affordable units?
Correct.
Okay. And has there been any update to like what the standard percentages are, affordable versus market? Or is it still the same standard?
It's still, they haven't specifically called out, you mean like the 15 to 20% set aside? Those are still the industry standard that's accepted. There are a lot of other changes in here, though, that there's a couple that let me highlight for you because I think they're important. The cap for senior affordable, which, as you remember, we've taken advantage of. In the last round, it was 25% of an obligation could be senior. They have increased that cap to 30%, so
that's good.
which is good. Yes, you can apply much more senior units now to your obligation.
But in general, it's usually like 20%. So if we look at it and we say 320 affordable units, that's really only 20% of what we can expect to be built.
For inclusionary,
general.
right, yeah, exactly. If we're talking about inclusionary projects, which are the most common, then if you want to consider total number of units, right, you would look at that as 20%.
Approximately.
Yeah.
But, so that's great with the 25% for going up to possibly 30%
Going up to
for
30%.
seniors.
And it's not possibly, that's absolutely the number.
okay.
That was what was adopted, yes. And
One thing you know.
Yeah, I do know that.
You do know one thing.
That is in the Fair Housing Act now. And they've also expanded the types of bonus credits that can be acquired and applied. So there's a lot more categories than they used to be. I think there's more opportunities there to capture credits. They also, as part of this, which is just a side, I think it is a bonus, there's not going to be the fees associated with court masters like there were last time, because the program that's been set up in the DCA's role, along with HMFA, they're going to take over those roles. There's not going to be those bills anymore.
Good.
Because, yeah. Let's see if there's a lot of smaller details that have changed, but there's opportunities to capture extension of controls if we have an older development and I know we do here, have some that the controls are expiring. We can work with them to extend them and then get new credits for the new round with those. So those are the types of things that we could get into with the Mount Laurel Committee to strategize.
So is that considered like rehabilitation type of thing, like rehab old things?
So that would
try
be
to get
actually a
credits?
totally separate category.
Okay.
That's an option as well. The extension of controls would be a development that, say, its first round of use restrictions, let's say it was put on them in 1990,
okay.
and they
That
expire
they're
in,
rolling off.
right, they expire in 2025, for example. We can extend them another 20, 30 years and even though we got credits for those in the prior round, we can get credits for them again in the fourth round, because now they're serving a new generation of households.
Oh, good.
So,
Okay.
yeah, so there's...
Do we have, how would that be applied in Providence?
I do know there are some units, and I have to talk to Margaret because my memory is we were chatting a few months ago about a few units that have expiring controls in 25, 26, so we are actually at a good timing for that.
Didn't we extend some already?
Some, but not all.
Yeah. So if we had
So-
already extended them, they won't.
So
It doesn't
we'll
count.
have to take a look.
Ask that.
Yeah, in the last round, I did have one community who had a unit that extended controls prior, and Fair Share did let us get credits for it.
Let's do it right now.
Right. So, and that's, if you remember with Fair Share being so involved the last time, a lot of towns, it seemed like there was different rules placed on certain towns than others. I don't know what the relationship is going to be. Fair Share certainly has an involvement this time. I'm just not sure how that plays out.
All right, any
It's
other
excellent, thank you.
questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So does any of this that they're working on, does any of this have anything to do with how like people apply for it? Because I know it seems like when we have it out on ours, that it's very, very hard to even apply for affordable housing in here in New Providence. Has anything been put forth to try and make it easier for people to apply? Like we have it on our website that says, really don't expect to find affordable housing in New Providence, so be open-minded to looking other places.
Well, wording similar to that, but that is not the wording. It's because people aren't moving, right? So the list is long, and like every other community. We actually just went out and advertised to start a new list, and it's hundreds of people.
Hundreds of people.
But at the same time, you know, you have to go person by person to qualify them, and many people don't qualify. So the list does move, but it's extensive.
Yes, and moves very slowly. I just know it's
Yeah.
very hard for people to get it, which kind of is frustrating for them because it
It
kind of
is.
feels like it's defeating the purpose. You want to get
Right.
people into the units, and
I
it's just
agree.
very hard to do it.
It's no, and it's a very good question, and all of us who implement this, the administrative agents especially know. I had a family member who was trying to get into one, and my dad is his guardian and asked me, why do I have to apply to every development separately? I was like, I don't know. We do know that they are working to update we call it UHAC, the Uniform Housing and Affordability Controls, and that set of standards has to do with the implementation of the affordable housing units specifically. I think a lot of people have made it known that this is a problem where there is not a good way to apply for housing units. I hope that is being heard by then. They are updating it, so I certainly hope that they're taking that into consideration, because I do know people have made that heard. It's a problem across the state.
It's a hard process.
Yeah, it's very hard, especially if these households have to apply every single time they want to look at a unit.
Yep, it's
So,
very hard.
Yeah. So I hope to come back to you in a few months with saying, yes, they have a new system for that.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
We'll be talking soon.
Yes. Hopefully with your subcommittee.
Thank you, McKinley. Any other questions? No? Okay, we have a public hearing. Anybody wishing to address council? Seeing no one, I declare the public. Oh,
Seeing no one.
Alan Swanson, 47 Overhill Road. There was mention of a number of reports, affordable housing funding report, activities reports that come out annually. Are those reports available to the public?
Yes, please do. Yeah, please come up.
The annual monitoring reports that have been released every year for the last 4 years are available through the borough's website. The current reports that we're doing right now are required to be sent to the DCA. I'll defer to our attorney. I don't think those are.
I think they would be. I think they would be deliberative and consultative. I don't think they would be available at this time, that we have to submit to DCA. I mean, this is all deliberative and consultative material, so I don't think that's going to be open to the public as we've submitted it. Maybe after it's accepted.
Right, and I can say, though, that a lot of the information that's in these new reports are in the annual monitoring reports. So if you look at the one that we submitted April 2nd, I believe, of this year, there's quite a bit of information in there about the borough's trust fund. And that is a public document.
Thank you. The second thing is, in this process, I didn't hear anything about this, and I haven't read anything clearly about it, and of course, she did mention that there are some unknowns. I'm just wondering what opportunities there may be for the public to participate in terms of commenting on any of the process.
we'll begin giving reports as they come, and you have every opportunity to address us at that time.
Okay.
I remember last time around, we had a lot of public hearings. We had a lot of
Yeah.
public notice, public information. We went to the public a lot while the process was going on, and I'm sure it'll be the same this time.
Yeah, I strongly encourage during the process to do that. You know, back in 2019, the process had been ongoing, and then when it was announced of what the process was, you had a room full of people screaming at you. So that there's a lot of, I mean, even today, I mean, you look out there and there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation that floats around.
That's why it's so important when you get your information, you don't go to the community forum, you don't go to all these different places. The correct information will be on the borough website. I've read things on the community forum, and the information right there is wrong. So.
Well, I corrected some today, actually.
I'm not-
Fair point,
I didn't
fair
point
point.
fingers. I just said there is a lot of information out there that's wrong. So the best place to get your information is in the borough website, and it would be updated as soon as we get the information from McKinley, because she's a professional and she has all the ins and outs of everything that goes down there in Trenton.
That's what I'm encouraging.
Yeah.
That's what, I mean, a number of you have been here in the process when, it's actually kind of when I got more involved in things was in that process, along with Brian. And that's a large part, one of the reasons that I got really more involved was the amount of disinformation that was out there. And so that I really would encourage that there's a good follow-up and that there's good solid information out there so that we don't have things like today where people are just sort of misrepresenting what's out there. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Anyone else wishing to address council? Seeing no one, I declare the public hearing closed, and we'll go to, where are we?
We're gonna adjourn.
Adjournment's really nice. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes, please.
No? So be it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I could actually drive home real quick.
Got half an hour.
I got another soda in the car. I knew it'd be a twofer today.
You go to work?
Another soda.
Huh?
Oh,
More
another
sugar
soda.
and caffeine.